Good evening, everyone. Welcome to LFC Transfer Room. I'm here tonight, joined by Kings, to discuss the latest developments around Liverpool. As you might have heard, we've lost our quarterfinal in the FA Cup on Sunday against Manchester United. It was a odd one to go through. I feel like I just didn't think we are going to lose that game, especially at halftime. We were 2-1 up at halftime, 3-2 up then at halftime in the extra time. But somehow we've lost it in the final minute, which is something we've been used to this season, but maybe on the other side of things. So a difficult one to take, obviously, but maybe a blessing in disguise for the rest of the season. We'll see. Kings, how are you tonight, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. It's a few days after that disaster at the weekend, so it's kind of eased. There's no problem with it now. It's just like it is what it is. You got to move on. But yeah, a difficult 24, 48 hours just to try and digest everything that happened in that game because it wasn't just a 1-0 loss, was it? So it was quite a lot going on in that game.
Yeah, especially if you're on social media, the noise is going to be. I feel like they've been milking this one more than we've milked the 7-0 at times, but
Yeah,
it is what it is. You don't really get to do it often in the last few years, so I guess it's understandable now.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, as I've been saying, I feel like we started off not necessarily in the best form. I thought we were lucky to be only 1-0 down when we were like in the 40th minute. And then somehow we scored two out of nowhere. I thought, okay, that's completely undeserved, but we'll take it. And moving forward, then in the second half, we've missed so many chances. Maybe not necessarily clear cut chances, but we've missed a lot of counterattacks. I feel like, we've had a lot of moments where we were 5-2, 4-2, 3 against 2, stuff like that. So I felt like the next thing coming was going to be our third goal, but somehow we've ended up in extra time, and it happened. It ended up the way that it ended. So, your thoughts on the game as a whole, and how did we end up losing that after leading at halftime and then in extra time as well?
I think first things first, I'm going to say that I didn't want to win it anyway. The FA Cup. It's like the League Cup's far better, isn't it? And we've
Yeah,
already got
I
that one in the bag.
completely agree. Yeah.
um, Now I was on the post match roundup after it, and that was obviously quite raw at the time. And when you sit back and look at it now, it's like I'm going to go to the end bit first. Conceding the last goal, only having one defender. That's we were attacking and we had one defender. So when it was 2 against 1, it was inevitable. I was starting to make notes ready for the post match roundup on here, and I was looking at it thinking, Rashford hasn't done that much, as in he wasn't clinical, etc. And of course, I had to scrub all that because then he was clinical, and of course it went downhill. But yeah, I think it was a mistake only having one defender on when they scored their fourth goal. But overall, when they went 1-0 up, I was quite concerned because I was like, we just didn't get going. We weren't that good. And I was actually very surprised to be going in at 2-1 up, to be honest. I'd have been happy. Even at 1-0, it was like, right, let's go in there. Jurgen can give them a good, rollicking basically and come out and play a lot better. And then to get the equaliser, it was like, okay, I'll take that. To go in at 2-1, I was ecstatic, thinking, well, this is great. And second half, we were much more dominant. Like you say, sometimes having multiple players against one or two of theirs, and it was like, how we didn't score is beyond me. There wasn't loads of clear-cut chances, as you say, but there was enough. And Liverpool are clinical enough normally that they can put the ball in the net at least once out of all them chances. It just, I don't know, it just wouldn't quite fall right for us. It would get a deflection, it would get a touch here, and you just getting frustrated, which makes the team as a whole get frustrated. And then right at the end, they get the sucker punch, obviously, to take it into extra time. And even at that point, I thought, yeah, we'll be all right here. And then the first period of extra time, they were all over Liverpool, to be honest. It was like I was surprised, thinking there's no energy in this side all of a sudden. Maybe that sucker punch right at the end really did just punch them a little bit too hard, knock the wind out of them. And then again, we go 3-2 up. And I'm thinking, so again, really, like the first half, against the run of play, we take the lead. And I'm thinking, well, 3-2 up, 15 to play. I think we'll be okay now. We've got the momentum again. And again, they just kind of eased off. And United just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And fair play to them to that. How many times has Liverpool especially the last couple of seasons, been renowned for what used to be called Fergie time years ago? United scoring so late in games has now become a signature of Liverpool, really, that, they score in these games so late on and catch teams out. And to have it like when we did it in the cup final, so late on in extra time to beat Chelsea, and we were all loving that. When it goes against you, very similar, the last minute of extra time, it's not so good. But you have to take the rough and the smooth. And I think in the end, they just wanted it a little bit more, and they were fired up. They were at home, and they just got that lucky break. I think when there was, like I say, just one defender, two players. I think it was inevitable. As soon as it broke for them, it was like, well, you can see it. Conor Bradley's a fantastic player, but at the same time, he's not a magician. He can't control everything when there's two players bearing down on him. So it's just one of them you got to look at and take and think, well, we should have done better. I think taking Salah off, I said this on the push match, it took him off too early. And without him as your main star player, I suppose, because there's other players, fair enough. But it's Mohamed Salah at the end of the day. And without him on there, I just think we were lacking a little bit then. And I'm sure maybe Jurgen thought, well, he's played in the European game, he's played enough here, and that's fine. We don't want to overstretch him that he's injured long term. So I can understand a little bit why he took him off. But I think after that, it was more that we lost our cutting edge a little bit more, and then eventually lost our way completely.
I feel like it's one of the reasons it was so hard to take it was the way we kind of came back in it right before halftime. You were thinking, as you said, and we were discussing this earlier. We didn't really look that great, and somehow still scored, and we were up right before halftime, and then in extra time as well. And then we, at least I was thinking, okay, if we somehow got the lead playing this way, then we get better going forward. And then that's why I think it was harder to take. It was that, and coupled with obviously the second half where we had so many good counterattacks to just finish it off, and that was it. But I'm hoping this will give us a bit more a bit more to prove, because we have him again in like a month or
3
so
weeks,
somewhere. So yeah, hopefully we'll see where we end up. It's what's interesting about the counterattacks is remembering how we used to do on counters in 2019, 2020. I feel like it was almost like a signature move for our front three. And now this season, the memes that we saw online after that counterattack missed against Arsenal were one thing, but now it's starting to look like maybe we're not as clinical on those counters as we used to. And that's obviously going to be a problem, because had we been more clinical against United, then we probably would have been in the semis, and it is what it is. So yeah, I'm kind of in the same position that you were in. I was completely shattered on Sunday. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to pick up my phone because I knew my friends were going to send me texts on it. But now, I kind of feel like, rationally, it is probably the least important one that we had left out of the three. But it's still like you don't have the guarantee you're gonna win the other. So I guess that's the problem. But let's maybe move forward from that because we've discussed it, and maybe it's better to leave it as it was. We've had this comment that's interesting, and that maybe we're going to use as our next topic. So John asked, how big a say will Michael Edwards have on transfers? So now we know that it's not I mean, it is. Was it? I don't think there was an official announcement yet, but we know 99% that we're probably going to get Michael Edwards back. Uh, Ed,
I think it is confirmed now. He was at the game at Old Trafford on Sunday as well,
yeah,
watching.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. So we now know that Michael Edwards is going to be back with Richard Hughes, I believe, as sporting director for us. Obviously, they're good friends, so that's what we know. Michael Edwards technically will not be the sporting director, obviously, in his role, but being at the club, I presume he's going to be Hughes's confidant, maybe, the person who's going to advise him on the moves that he's thinking of proposing to the club. So I'd be interested to ask you this question. Do you think Michael Edwards will chip in occasionally and help Hughes out? Or then maybe he'll just oversee the operations more on a global level?
I look at it as in the guy that's coming under Michael Hughes. Like I say, it looks like Michael Edwards. Richard Hughes looks like it's going to be him, and he is experienced enough to do the job himself. To have somebody like Michael Edwards there as well. One, like you said, they are good friends, so I'm sure they're going to speak very, very regular, if not daily. And then also, he can tap into the fact that Michael Edwards has been there and done that role pretty much. So he's a very, very good negotiator. So between the two of them, I do think he'll have some input as well as taking a general role over the whole of the football inside. But I think if it is Richard Hughes, I think he'll be able to turn to him and say, right, what about this? Any advice on this, that, the other, if he needs that, he's going to come in with his own ideas as well, Richard Hughes, if he is confirmed. And I think that between the two of them, they'll have enough knowledge and power between the two of them to get hopefully some fantastic deals over the line. Of course, Michael Edwards is very good as well as moving on players for a really good fee. So between them, hopefully, if we have to move on players, they get the best value for them, which leaves more money in the pot for the new, I was going to say manager, but I've got a feeling they're going to announce a head coach instead. I don't know if it's, and I mean, and there is a difference. People say, oh, the head coach or a manager, it's the same thing. They do the team on a match day, and it is similar, but like Jurgen Klopp has now got pretty much full control over Liverpool, who they buy, who they sell, etc. As a manager of the team, a coach just comes in and coaches and puts them out ready for the games. Where behind the scenes, I think is Barry Hunter and somebody else who will work alongside Richard Hughes, identifying players and bringing them in. And yeah, I'm quite excited actually, because some of the track record of what Michael Edwards has done previously, if that rubs off at all on the new setup, then I think we're going to have some fantastic players arriving at Liverpool over the coming years.
It is interesting because when I heard when I remember I was at work and I was scrolling on my phone as you usually do at work, and I saw the announcement of Jurgen leaving. I thought, there's no way I'm going to be excited, in the next few months. Sorry, but looking at it now, indeed, there are things to be excited about because we've discovered this season. We've seen players like Dunce, Bradley, McConnell, Clark, and obviously our signings who are still young, McAllister, Soboslai, Endo, the engine in midfield as well. I think we have so many good young players now going forward, and it's definitely a reason to be excited because we're now going to get, as you said, a manager or a head coach. I do agree though that we're probably going to get a head coach mainly because it's it's starting to make sense. When you heard that Michael Edwards was leaving, the rumors were that he was maybe not on the best terms with Jurgen, and
Yeah.
he wasn't necessarily okay with Jurgen taking so much control. And it makes sense if Edwards is now back and Hughes, who presumably shares similar values, is going to be our sporting director, then I think it just doesn't make sense for us to appoint a manager. And when you look at the options available, I feel like you don't really want to appoint a manager. Like Xabi Alonso, as great as he seems, maybe he's not necessarily ready to be a manager, more like a head coach, take control of on-field stuff, maybe, leave the others to other
Mm.
people. So, and even if it's not him, then it's probably going to be, the names we've seen are Ruben Amorim, who's also, maybe not as experienced, and especially not at a big club level either. So, yeah, it is going to be interesting moving forward. Interesting. I've actually seen this topic that Paul has brought up here with Lloyd Kelly. Uh, I'm not convinced. I don't know about you. I'm gonna ask you obviously this question. Lloyd Kelly, I feel like he is a good Premier League player, but he's that sort of a Premier League player that usually plays for mid-table sides. And I don't know if he'd be good enough to play for us. Now, obviously, in the summer, I feel like we would need a center back, especially if Matip leaves. Is Lloyd Kelly an option? If not, who would you think?
Ooh. That is a tough one because I don't know Lloyd Kelly that well, to be fair, as a player. So whether he could do the job, it's like you say. I'm not disrespectful to teams like Bournemouth because, as we noticed, same as up until recently, there was Brighton, there's Fulham, and they're more like what you would say. They're not really going down. They're not really going to win the league. They're in the middle somewhere, and that's nothing wrong with that. There's no disrespect to any of them. Teams like that. If you look at last summer, yes, he's a World Cup winner, and that's completely different level, I suppose. But looking at Alexis McAllister, he's a so-called mid to higher end Premier League player with Brighton. And we bring him in, and people are going, right, well, we didn't expect to do a big overhaul. Okay. Then you bring in Endo from the German leagues. And I think a lot of players, come from abroad as well. And you're just like, well, are they going to fit in? Liverpool's a top club. And yet McAllister has proven game after game once he got settled and a good run inside. And even Endo, to be fair, when he first came in, people were like, no, it's not going to work. He's going to be a backup player and he's going to be like Milner. He's going to come on the last 15 minutes to show up. Once he got a good run in the side, absolutely fantastic. And they didn't pay £100 million each for them two players. They got them probably both for around 50, 55 million, something like that, I think it was. And that shows that there is talent out there. It's just being able to identify it. And I think Richard Hughes has experience of that as much as maybe Edwards has, of spotting players. I mean, I know Paul's put in the chat about did he have something to do with the Salah deal? He did, Michael Edwards. And of course, that's turned out to be one of those, like he was rejected at Chelsea because he wasn't good enough and sent out to Italy. And whatever we feel about the Italian leagues, whether they're good or bad in people's eyes is irrelevant because he's come back to the Premier League and he's forever going to be on the walls, at Anfield in history because he's that good. And it was such a spot, like the prices they pay for players like that. It's like, wow, you've saved, Nowadays it has moved on and people get bandied about for £100 million and you think they're average or, they would come across. But going back to Lloyd Kelly himself, he could move up from Bournemouth to Liverpool and he could be outstanding. It's just, I suppose, who's coaching them at the time and how they fit in with moving to such a big club. But it comes down to their temperament as well, how they handle the situation, as well as it's okay the club going in, just going, right, we're going to pay you X million pound and we're having him. If he comes in, he's overawed every game for 6 months, then it might completely damage his confidence and he's not very good for Liverpool. Others come in and they thrive on that and it makes them, far better. So I suppose really They need to do a lot of research on each player. Yes, Richard Hughes, if he comes in, would know him quite well, so he would know if he's got the temperament to be able to move up. So hopefully the right choices are made in the summer.
I think what's interesting in discussing transfers now is that every name that we're going to mention has an asterisk because we still don't know the next coaches or managers' plans, and it's still going to be interesting. That's I wanted to answer this question. So, as far as we know, there has been an inquiry made from Liverpool towards Leverkusen on regarding Xabi Alonso, but we're probably not going to have an announcement anytime soon because obviously we are in a title charge and Leverkusen are as well. Granted, they are in a lot better position, so I guess if they win it early, then we might see some more indicators of on on the Xabi Alonso front. But it's still early days, so we're gonna have to see. Um, it, one one thing that I wanted to say, I was mentioning since the summer when we've discussed potential Mo Salah replacements. Jared Bowen was the name that I've mentioned as well. So great to see someone else sharing the enthusiasm on Jared Bowen. Um, Although I feel like that's not going to be a move that we can make anytime soon. He's probably going to stay at West Ham, is what I'm trying to say, and still fairly expensive for his age as well. So yeah, yeah, indeed. The deals we've seen under FSG have all been made, in a secretive manner, rather. So obviously, we're probably not going to know anytime soon, as we said. I do feel like this being such a high profile drama now with us and Xabi Alonso, we would get news if we know Leverkusen's situation. So if they win the league, and if the league is finished in England as well, if Liverpool hopefully win it anytime soon, then we'll probably get some more news. But up until then, I think we're not going to necessarily waste too many resources on that front. So we're going to have to see. So yeah, feel free to leave your comments as well. Please like and subscribe, and obviously leave your comments. We'd love to try and integrate your thoughts as well into the conversations that we're having. Moving forward, one thing that I wanted to ask you, Kings, is player fitness. We knew that Mo Salah was back for the game against Sparta, and I remember us talking on the chat, and I was thinking, okay, if Mo Salah is fit, and considering that we've won 5-1 away from home, then we can definitely, bring him in for the last 20-30 minutes, have him fit for United, and then he'll start the game and maybe, be able to play full 90 there. But Mo Salah actually played the whole game against Sparta in the Europa League. Nunez also played quite a lot. And we know that due to injuries, we've had quite a lot of matches in the last few months and weeks as well. So we've only had 2 days in between Sparta and United on Sunday, and I've seen this thing online regarding player fitness, and I'm starting to think, was Jurgen right to play so many starting 11 players on Thursday, or should have we rested Salah?
I think I was lucky enough. I was at the game on Thursday against Sparta, and to be fair, I was really surprised at the strength of side he picked with Nunez, Salah, etc. There was a few, and I thought, well, you've got this big game the weekend. Why maybe play them from the start? Is he going to do it till half time? Maybe, and of course, after 14 minutes, we were 4-0 up. So even being 5-1, I think the game was over anyway. But scoring 4 goals so quick, it was like, right, well, the job is done. You can literally play. You could play me on the pitch, and I'm sure we'd still would have won quite easily. And I can't play football. And I think, well, why didn't he take him off after giving him 45 minutes? The both of them, really. They could have put Dan's up front, or just, Gakpo give him a run down the middle just to get his confidence up a little bit. So I was surprised at the amount of game time they actually had. Going into the United game, I know Paul again has said in the chat, that Salah didn't have maybe the best game on Sunday, and he didn't. He did, and that's probably because he's played two quite long games or lots of minutes in like 2 or 3 days, and it's like that is going to take it out of you when you've had an injury, especially being out for a while. So I think he could have been nursed better. Is that a criticism on Jurgen Klopp? No, I'm sure Salah was knocking on his door like most other players, saying, "I want to play. All the minutes you can give me, I will take." And that's what all players are like. So I just think that it's easy to look at it now and go, well, they were a bit fatigued, etc. But it's a difficult decision. You're playing in Europe and you think, right, he's got to have some minutes, and then you're playing your biggest rivals as well. And you're like, well, you want them to be in both and give a good account of themselves. I mean, look at somebody like Elliot. Um, I think he's played, well, it seems like he's played every minute for about 3 years solid. He seems to be constantly playing, and it's only at the very end of games you're thinking, right, he looks tired now. He is like a machine, that guy is, and it's like the more you play, the more you want to play. And I'm sure Salah was definitely saying to the gaffer that he wanted to play against United, and I'm sure he was. If you look at the footage, he's probably quite disappointed to be coming off when he did. Um, so it's a fine balancing act, really, of getting the right time for the manager and the player to agree on and say, well, do it this way and it'll work. It's like it doesn't always work that way, and unfortunately, it didn't work out on Sunday because he did look a little bit jaded. So I probably wouldn't have played him as long. But we can all be managers, before, during, and after the game in all these chats that we do and these kind of podcasts and streams and with your mates and everything. We're all managers. We all think we know best. We will play this player here and this defender there and this goalie instead of that one, and we all go along doing that. And then when if I picked out that team for Man United on Sunday, and it ended up like it did, all my mates would be saying, "Well, you're a rubbish manager because look what happened." So it's like it's easy for us to analyze it and then say this is going to happen or we should do this, and then of course when it doesn't work out, it's like we just go, "Oh, it's Klopp's fault. He picked the wrong person, or it's Salah's fault for not playing well." So it's a difficult one, to balance out, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, I think listening to you talk, I was actually thinking we get one of those counters, we score the third goal, it's 3-1, we win
Yeah,
it, and then we don't
yeah,
have this conversation anymore. So
yeah.
it
This
is
is
what it
it.
is. But indeed, hindsight. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, what's done is done, and we know Jurgen is the type of manager that usually wouldn't rotate as much. I mean, he was even more so in the last few years. I think he's kind of started to maybe take care of the players' fitness a bit more in the last few seasons. But yeah, um, a conversation that people were having in the chat is about Mo Salah going on international duty. He is not, as far as I know, he is not going to be joining Egypt for their friendlies. I think they have. Um, so he is going to be in Liverpool. So is Darwin Nunez, and indeed, we're going to have 2 weeks to sort out any sort of injuries that we still have. I think after the Man United game, Jurgen said that Cody, Nunez, and was there someone else as well? I don't remember. I think it was
I'm not
Cody and
sure.
Nunez for sure that he said had a bit of had problems each, like some sort of hamstring issues, if I remember correctly. But yeah, it's going to be 2 weeks, I think. We're playing Brighton on the 31st of March. So up until then, hopefully, we're going to get some more news. And by the way things are looking up, we're probably going to get Mo Salah and Darwin Nunez fit for that game. And who joins them? That we'll find out in a few minutes because we have some other topics prepared as well. One thing that I wanted to discuss moving forward is the criticism that some of the players got after the United game. Now, I know we all watched the match on Sunday, and I think we can all agree that it was probably Cody Gakpo's least impressive performance in a Liverpool shirt. So he seemed like, nothing was really going his way. His passing wasn't really accurate. His distribution on those counters that we've discussed wasn't necessarily good either. So obviously he got a lot of stick, a lot of criticism for it. So did Darwin Nunez. So then did Harvey Elliott. Kings, I said it on the chat on Sunday in extra time. If we don't win this, then our front three definitely has to be criticized, because we really could have killed the game off a lot earlier. But there's a limit, I think, on how hard you can go, especially considering that we are still in a much better position than we thought we would be at the beginning of the season, or at least in my opinion. I've said it on stream that I don't think we're going to push for the league. We did, and we're still joint first with 8-9 matches left. We've won silverware already. We're in the quarters of the Europa League. I think we're still in a really good position, and I feel like some of the criticism was a bit unjust, especially towards a player who played in center mid, as a striker, as a right winger, as a left winger, and in 4 or 5 positions this season. So your thoughts on the criticism on Cody's season, and maybe on the resemblance with Nunez, because I remember last season Cody was the informed one and Nunez was the one who's getting criticism, and now seems like the roles have reversed.
I mean, as I said, I was on the roundup show after the Man United game, and we did criticize Cody Gakpo because the way I said it was, I think he's low on confidence. I think he's one of these players that really needs an arm around the shoulder for somebody to just come along and go, don't worry about it, you'll be fine the next game, etc. He's not the type of player that you shout and moan and say things to him, you were rubbish, etc. That's not going to get the best out of him. I don't know if it gets the best out of any players, but some managers like to shout a lot. Some managers are more diplomatic and they will try and work with the player to get the best out of them. Now, Nunez, when he came in last year, really struggled, you know, for the simple thing as well. Yes, he was coming to a new club, and everybody was going, well, Man City have bought Haaland, and he comes in, sets the world on fire straight away. Now, the comparison was, well, Liverpool are the other top side, so they bought a new striker, and he doesn't score anything. He's got no confidence. And it's like, it's not that he didn't have the confidence then, he took longer to settle in for a start. This season for him, you can see he's adapted better. It doesn't get put off. If he tries 5 shots in a game, one goes in, maybe it's the 5th shot. The first 4, he doesn't lose confidence anymore. He just runs off and kind of like, right, I'll cause more chaos somewhere else. He's kind of like, he's so upbeat, especially now. So he's obviously learned more about what it's like playing in this country and how to keep himself maybe motivated as he's playing in games and missing things to go back and try again. The problem with Cody, and it's like, yes, we're all guilty of it in some form by coming on these streams, etc. and everything. We're all guilty of maybe knocking his confidence. But there's other people out there who on social media are, to be fair, they're disgusting. Some of the things that have been said to him is outrageous. And he shouldn't be putting up with things like that. At the end of the day, whether he's a football player on Sunday league wages where he plays every Sunday afternoon with his mates, or whether he's Mo Salah or Mbappe, possibly, going to Madrid, they're still people at the end of the day. And things said on social media to people like that is a disgrace. And how anybody can have any confidence if they're just going to get attacked like that all the time. And most of them, I would say, are not even proper football fans. If they can go on and call their own player names and really put them down and make them feel that bad, then they shouldn't even be saying they're a football fan in general. Never mind one team and one, it's a disgrace, to be honest. And it's a fine balancing act between footballers or sports people actually being on social media. Do they stay on because they think, well, we've got the right to be on it like everybody else? Or would it be better for them to maybe not be on it and then they don't see half the criticism? But that's their own personal choice whether or not. But some of the things on social media are definitely going to make that player in particular, but players in general feel a lot worse, and they're not going to give their best if they're feeling really down about the things that are said about them if they have an off game.
Yeah, I feel us as a fan base, I feel like we're not that type of a fan base to start slagging off players, after, well, I was going to say a few bad performances, but indeed, his season has been under par, as we've seen people mentioning in the comments. I do agree with that. And obviously, I think that your point about their confidence and on the way they perform, I think was the one that I would share as well. I'm thinking him and Nunez, both of them are still young, are still players that obviously need confidence to get forward and to push and give their best. And I do agree with it. And I feel like us, slagging players off is not really going to help them. So yeah, I don't know. I still rate Cody Gakpo, and I do feel like he is Liverpool quality. Sorry, we've seen the change in Nunez on perspective in Nunez as well. Because last season, I remember people saying we need to sell. He's not good at, and even this season, at the beginning of it, people saying that we need to sell. He's not good enough, and somehow now, all of a sudden, he's a fan
Yeah.
favorite. And maybe also there's one thing that we need to mention. As Paul said, we are still missing quite a lot of players. So maybe judging someone's performances in a system that maybe he has to do a bit more than he was doing before is not necessarily fair on our side as well. So, I
I,
think, yeah, go on.
Sorry, I was just going to say, funny if it says in the chat there, maybe he's just not working at Liverpool at the moment. And going back to what we said about somebody else coming in the summer, they're going to have a new manager stroke coach come in, whether they want one or not. And he could say, or I'll have to say it as well, she could say that the Cody Gakpo's position is now on the left wing, permanent, or through the middle, permanent, or whatever they decide. And that could be a revelation. They could be the star player. At the same time, it's unlikely because he's got so much quality, but somebody come in and say, right, to Mohamed Salah, you're going to play this way now because I need you to tweak your game a little bit. And he goes completely off the boil. And we're all looking at him going, well, he's amazing. What's happened? It's like, because every single man in charge has their own way of tweaking the side to get the best out of them. So whether it's Trent going from right back into midfield permanent, whether it's Gravenberch playing more often or Gakpo or whatever, we've been spoilt over the last few years. When you were saying earlier in the show about the way we counter-attacked, we've been spoilt with Salah, Mane, and Firmino playing up front. They were phenomenal. And there was always going to be a point when that changed. And when one went, then the second one went. And we've still got Salah, obviously. But it takes a lot then to try and replicate something like that. So, I really like watching Jota play. My personal opinion is I think he's better off the bench than he is starting. But that's just my personal opinion because he comes on, he's got a lot of energy, and he's really good. He's a good finisher, to be fair to him. But if he played if he played 5 games in a row starting, I don't think you see the best of him. I think he's hungry when he comes off the bench, which is, like I said, that's my opinion. And I think with Gakpo, he just needs time and somebody else to come in and maybe work with him on the training page and say, right, this is what I want from you, and this is how I want you to go about it. And we could potentially have a hell of a player for the future. He just needs a bit more confidence and the right person to put him in the right position. It's just finding what that is.
Yeah. I think one thing that I wanted to add to, these sort of comments, I remember last season I was talking to a friend of mine who's a Liverpool fan as well, and he was saying that with the way Cody Gakpo has been playing for Liverpool, do we feel like Nunez maybe is not the type of player that we need? And I was saying it last season as well. Cody Gakpo, as I said, he scored a lot more last season. He was the better player between him and Nunez, on numbers, on eye test, whatever you wanna think about. Um, People were saying the same things that we see now on Cody. That people saying Cody's not working for Liverpool. They say it now. Last season they were saying it about Nunez. That's how I feel. Still, I would maybe have a bit more confidence in these players. I remember the Cody Gakpo performance against Man United at home in the 7-0, and not only that, but that was like the one that I said, you know what, this guy is going to be good for us. And not only in the goal scored, but I remember the work rate and everything about it. When he is on a high level of confidence, he can do everything pretty much. A good at link up play, a good finisher, good dribbling, good work rate, pretty much anything you want. That's why I feel like I still have faith in Cody to succeed, and I still feel like he'll do great, especially playing in a consistent position now moving forward, and
Yeah.
not being played in everywhere else on the pitch. Um, okay, the other comment that I wanted to include is actually has something to do with our final topic for tonight. How long before Jota is back? Now, from what I've seen on Twitter today, he is back in light training. That means he hasn't trained with a team. He started to jog. So he is training lightly indeed, but he is still in training. So that could obviously mean a lot for us going forward. Uh, for me, you know what you get when you have Diogo Jota on the pitch. He may not be necessarily the most visible one. He might necessarily be included in the most opportunities, not necessarily uh, uh, maybe part of play as Mo Salah is when he's playing obviously everywhere. But when he gets that chance, Jota rarely misses, and he's the type of player that gets 2 goals from half a chance. So that's the type of player that you want going for the title in these last few weeks of the league. So, Kings, what I wanted to ask you is how important is or how important is Jota being back for us, and how much of a role is he going to play in the final part of the season? Because I feel if we had Jota on Sunday in a few moments, things could have been different. And I have this opinion on a lot of games that he's missed.
I do feel that Jota is a valuable player for Liverpool. He's actually, I think, he's underrated by a lot of fans. Maybe because he's not as good or not as frequent scoring as maybe Mo Salah, but he's one hell of a finisher. You can't deny that. He's very good at being a team player. I feel. I don't think he's that selfish. I'm just thinking back to just before he was injured and he headed in. Who was he playing against with Nunez? He headed it across to him, and Nunez chips the ball in. Now I can't think of the team we were playing against. Only recently, fairly recent, just before he was injured. But that showed to me that he's not a selfish player. Um, he's a very, very valuable member of the squad, I feel, because he brings something different to what Salah, Nunez, even Diaz, Gakpo, and if he's into light training already, he's got a couple of weeks now for the international break, which is great to get him along. If he can come back into contention quite quickly after the international break, then he's going to be a very big, valuable asset to Liverpool in the running with the last few games, because I think he'll really offer something different, whether it's off the bench or from the start. Whichever way we decide to play him, I think he can offer a lot, and I think he will get some vital goals for Liverpool, to be honest, and that really could tip us, in our favour than maybe another team's favour.
Hopefully, we can only hope so. I feel like I said it on another stream as well. We were so close in 2019. We were like 1 point behind City, and then in the Champions League 1 year earlier, we've missed in Kiev. We've missed the chance to win the Champions League then. Then again in 2022, the Champions League final against Real, that against Madrid, that I think we were the far better team and we still lost. And then the league, we know what happened at the
Yeah.
Etihad against Villa with them again missing by 1 point. I feel like all of this bad luck that we've had in the past few years has to turn around now. I think this has to be the season where it finally happens. It has to be the perfect farewell for Jurgen. And with Diogo being back now after the international break, I feel like it is obviously going to be a big boost for us. For me, I think he's just going straight in. Now, I know you said it. You said that he's better coming off the bench, which I do see a lot of. I feel like for me, he just has to start. He's the type of player that just has to. Yeah, and again, as you said, I think we can obviously, as long as he plays, I think we're all happy about it. I think he's in considering our best front three. I think he has to be there. It's him, Nunez, and Mo at the moment, but now the good thing is that we do have the squad depth as well. So hopefully that means that we can
Yeah.
achieve more than the years I've mentioned. So with that, I think we're gonna end tonight's stream. I'm gonna thank Kings and everyone in the chat for leaving their comments, for liking, subscribing, and obviously it means a lot for us to be for you to be here. 7:30 UK time every day of the week, or maybe not every day, because we do have post-match streams as well, and they're not necessarily at 7:30. But we are going to be streaming every day, even during the international break. And obviously, be sure to tune in and leaving your comments and be part of the conversation. So, Kings, much appreciated, mate.
No problem.
To everyone, hope you're having a great night, and be sure to join us tomorrow and the day after, and to maybe try and relax this international break, as we know that being a Liverpool fan, being a red, is fairly stressing. Look at my hairline, that kind of proves it. So up the Reds, everyone. Have a great week. Bye.